welcome back to Misty Mountain Gaming. I'm the D&D wannabe. My name is Rob. And things look a little different to you? Oh, right. Because this is a green screen, and I'm at my Twitch studio instead of in my normal YouTube set. What has brought about this change? Well, members of our community Discord, Steven, Tipsy Schnitzel, and Allie, all asked a little while ago what my setup is behind the screen when I'm running a game of D&D as a dungeon master. And if there were any differences between doing so in real life and when I'm running an online game. Well, this is the first of those videos. Today, we're going to talk about what I bring to the table, literally, when I'm running a game of Dungeons & Dragons for my friends in my house or at one of theirs. Are you ready? Let's begin. When I'm running a game of Dungeons & Dragons, I like to have the same sorts of things handy. And whether it's in real life or online, whether I'm sitting in front of a table or a computer, what form those things take may be a little bit different, but they serve the same functions. And the first thing that I want to make sure that I have is notes on the campaign that I have prepared in advance. That is this right here. This is actually the real campaign notebook and world setting guide for the very first tabletop RPG that I ever ran. It was a Pathfinder game, and it was a custom homebrew world that I created, and I still have the thing. I'm pretty proud of myself for that. Whether it's information on NPCs, towns, nations, kings and queens, villains, or just creatures that fill the world, anything that you want to know about your campaign or might need to reference needs to be somewhere close to hand. You might prepare differently than me. Rather than doing it for the whole campaign, you might just have what you prepared for a particular session and do it step at a time in that way. Regardless, whatever you wanted to make sure that you knew to run tonight's game, bring it to the table. If you're running a pre-written adventure or a module from Wizards of the Coast, this will look a little bit different for you. This might be the book, The Tomb of Annihilation, or The Curse of Strahd, or Storm King's Thunder, or whatever adventure you and your friends are playing through in a given campaign. Just make sure that the information that you need is within reach. Speaking of being able to reference official Wizards of the Coast material, you're going to want to make sure that you have easy access to the rules of the game. This is normally, in the case of running in person, access to the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and other things that contain different rules on how to play the game moment to moment. Normally, when I'm on my YouTube set, just out of frame here, there is a shelf of all of the books that I own to that effect. Very close to hand. But honestly, I don't use those books nearly so much anymore because I have one of these. All of the rules that you could possibly want to know, as well as many lengthy discourses on their interpretations, are available for free online. There's no need to go pawing through a book to find the particular page number of a rule that's probably already been reprinted by now. Instead, go to Google or your favorite internet search engine, type in your question, get an immediate correct answer. What's the difference between stunned and incapacitated? What kind of racial bonuses does a Kinku get? How long does a barbarian's rage last? What happens to the spell I'm concentrating on if I go unconscious? Answers to these questions, and realistically any other, are just a few keystrokes away. Once upon a time, you checked your phones at the door when you sat down to play a Dungeons & Dragons game in person. Nowadays, that's a little antiquated. This just makes everything so much easier, so much faster, and really streamlines the process of playing the game. So, we can look up information on our campaign and its setting, and we can look up information on the game and its rules. Next, we need to be taking down information. Anyone who's been with this channel for a while and has watched my new Dungeon Master's Tips video knows that one of my top 5 pieces of advice for someone running the game is that you should be taking notes all the time that you're running. It can be as simple as a little yellow legal pad. Just something where you can take down information that you're going to want to remember later. It doesn't have to be in any particular order or in any particular style. You're going to transcribe it into your campaign notes later on between sessions. For now, just get that information that you want to remember somewhere. It could help to use different colored pens or some other way to make your notes catch the eye or to distinguish between different types of notes. Things about characters, things about places, or things about the bad guys, for example. Whatever you decide to do, make sure that you're getting that information down the minute it happens, and don't depend upon your own memory to make sure that you have it for later. No one sitting down to play Dungeons & Dragons, especially not the Dungeon Master, is ready to play without some of these guys. Dice. You're going to be using these guys a lot, so it's good to have them very close to hand. Furthermore, you may want to bring enough to share. Yes, that bag is full of dice. Now, at some point during your D&D campaign, maybe not this session, maybe not the next, but soon, and for the rest of the campaign, you are going to be fighting. Some games emphasize combat a lot more than others, but since a lot of class features and spells that your party members are going to be obtaining as they ascend through the levels focus on dealing or mitigating damage, your players aren't getting the most out of their characters if they never fight. And when they do, you need to be ready. This is a Wet Erase battle map that I got off of Amazon.com for pretty cheap, as a matter of fact. The Crown Royal bag next to it is filled with Wet Erase markers of varying sizes and colors. I can use this to quickly create a battle map and a scene for our combat encounter to take place in, so that all of my players know exactly how far away that enemy is, what's between it and them, and how they can best use their environment to their advantage. Visual aids like this really help set a scene, as well as keep the game moving, so that you don't have to explain the terrain or where everyone is at any given moment. Speaking of which, buying miniatures for your combat encounters for every single creature or PC or NPC for every single session of your campaign can become very expensive very fast, even if you have a reputable seller who gives them to you on the cheap. That is a lot of minis. But at the same time, while you could use stray dice, coins, or skittles to represent different people on the map, you want something a little bit better, maybe, to visually represent what you are seeing. For those, I use these guys, Pathfinder Pawns. I got a couple of them out and put them above my session notes there. Behir, 2 wolves, and a warg. These things are just little pieces of fairly durable cardboard set into little round plastic stands, but they do a great job of quickly and effectively conveying what your players' characters see. They also come with kind of the added bonus of being from that Pathfinder art style, which means, one, if any of your players are familiar with what a creature looks like in the 5th edition Monster Manual or other books, these creatures will seem a little bit alien and unfamiliar to them. And the Pathfinder art style is just kind of cool, a little edgier, a little darker than what 5th edition has been giving us. So, bonus points. Now that everyone around the table has a clear idea of what they're up against, you actually have to run the combat. And that's going to involve more writing and more math with some numbers that are changing pretty regularly. You might need to know what the passive perceptions of the party members are, what the armor class is of a creature that has its shield equipped or one that doesn't, or that didn't have time to put its armor on. You'll want to keep track of the initiative order and the hit points of every creature involved in the combat, except the player characters. They can handle that themselves. And those numbers are going to steadily decrease and maybe occasionally increase too. That's why you can see I brought pencils to the party. Mechanical pencils in this case. That way I can write things that may need to be erased later. Things that aren't quite set in stone enough to be worthy of ink. If you need a decent amount of page space to be able to handle your combat, you can use this same notebook that you've been using to take other notes during the session. Or, if you need to do something rather quickly, or keep something visually within your eye line so that you are less likely to forget, I also bring sticky notes with me whenever I run. As you can see, kind of in that top left-hand corner, screen left, I have a sticky note already stuck to my Dungeon Master screen just to remind me to make sure that I use this villain's legendary actions. Maybe I'll note what they are, or what it can do. Maybe I'll need to make sure that I introduce 2 more enemies in the 3rd round of combat. Or that, after 4 rounds, that ritual that was started before combat began is going to wrap up. Whatever it is, sometimes it's nice to be able to put something a little apart from the rest of your notes so that it stands out a little bit. Speaking of the Dungeon Master screen, I kinda recommend using this, and I certainly do when I run. It's not necessarily to try and hide my roles from the players so that I can secretly cheat and use my powers as the Dungeon Master to tell exactly this kind of story that I want to tell, regardless of what the dice are doing to me on a particular evening. No, there's information on the inside of the Dungeon Master screen. Things that will mean that I don't have to use my phone or get distracted or pick up any other device or book to be able to tell my players some of the rules. Just having the status effects and conditions broken down for you right in front of you while you're running the game is incredibly convenient. Depending on the screen that you use, you can actually have customized overlays or inserts to tell you exactly what you want to know while you're running the game. There is a lot of fodder and food for thought on that topic out there on the internet with a quick Google search. I didn't include it in the picture here, but you may also consider having something nearby to play some music, just to kind of set the mood. It could be a tablet, it could be the phone that you brought with you that's sitting right in front of you on the table, or it can be a nearby smart TV or speaker. Whatever you choose, it can really add to the atmosphere of the evening if you just have a little bit of mood music to help your characters catch that vibe. And finally, most importantly, while you are running a game of Dungeons & Dragons, you should never be without your favorite refreshment. That's it, guys. That is the Running Dungeons & Dragons in Real Life, What Do I Need to Bring to the Table with Me video for Dungeon Masters. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another video. Even if it was definitely a very different sort of video than what we're used to here on the channel. But hey, I enjoy being here in my little Twitch studio. I'm here quite a lot, actually, to get work done or to stream on Twitch over at Misty Mountain Streaming. We are playing D&D twice a week and usually have a community stream on the weekends where folks like you can come play some games with us. Me and the adventurers of Misty Mountain Gaming. Voice actors, cosplayers, general D&D nerds, dungeon masters, players, and the like. A pretty cool community is actually coming together over there. I hope you come and join it. And as always, if you aren't getting enough of me talking about D&D, I do have a podcast with my twin brother, Bardic Twinspiration. Check out the video description for a little more about that. And hey, while you're down there, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell if you want to know exactly when our next video goes up. Until next time, friends and adventurers, farewell and Godspeed. It can be as simple as a little yellow legal pad. Yeah, I got it. It can be as simple as a... There. Little yellow legal pad.